For further analysis, I'm joined by Professor An Junseong at Yonsei University Graduate School of International Studies. Professor An, thanks for coming on.
Thank you.
So first, I want to ask you, this year's G7 summit is being held in Hiroshima, Japan, the city devastated by an atomic bomb in 1945. So why this particular city?
Well, that's a very good question because, I think there are two different perspectives. First, for the international perspective, I think the Japanese government recently changed their global image from an invader to the victim of war, for example, because they are victim of the nuclear attack in 1945. So I think that's in a way that the Japanese government trying to increase their global leadership in a way to rejuvenate the national economy in a global setting. So in a way that increasing their global leadership, and with that increased leadership, they try to rejuvenate their economy. I think that's kind of a big picture. And from the domestic perspective, obviously that Hiroshima is the home district for the Prime Minister Kishida. So I think that's a great plus for him for the future election. And plus that some of his family members actually were the victim of the atomic attack in 1945. So I think there carries some personal value to the Prime Minister as well.
All right, some political message there. And President Yoon and Japanese Prime Minister Fumio Kishida will visit a memorial park in Hiroshima tomorrow to honor Korean victims of the atomic bombs dropped during the World War II. What does this mean for the Seoul-Tokyo relationship?
Well, I guess that that question is of interest because in a way that the both leaders getting together to that place, I think that's have some significance, right? So it means that they're achieving something. But however, I think that's just beginning. There should be a beginning. It's not the result, because that we'll have to see that what would happen in terms of under the improved relation between two countries. So I guess that's a good step to taking. But you have to see what they can do in the future. I think that's more significant. And plus that getting something that sending message. I think the Japanese government tried showing some of the not necessarily best effort and doing some job to saying some message, something that welcome message to the Koreans saying, well, we're doing some job on our side. I think that's some political reason as well.
All right. And the Japanese Prime Minister said the G7 Hiroshima meeting will send a strong message for the world free from nuclear weapons. In fact, a group of 7 members has issued a joint statement, and they call for complete, verifiable, and irreversible abandonment of North Korea's nuclear weapons. What do you read into this?
Yeah, just earlier today, right? They issued a joint statement, right? That's called Hiroshima, right? Hiroshima division, the nuclear disarmament. I think that my observation is that if we really want to solve the problem, actually, for international community or the international organization, maybe supposed to be sit down together, actually, like a six-party talk, right? The party have to be together and talk, but unfortunately, it's only the unilateral message from G7 country and plus the invited countries to the other side, such as here. Obviously Russia and China and North Korea, etc., perhaps Iran. So I guess that's the message. I think that that's the one point about that joint statement is that, well, at least we, successfully include the specific, I say the expressions in that statement, the CVI, right? Complete, verifiable, irreversible, abandonment of the nuclear in the North Korea. I think that's achievement, but yeah, but I'm not sure how much weight will carry to North Korean government because they'll become more common enemy to all countries anyway, not only the G7, all the countries. So basically, the idea is that, well, yes, there's a good point that we could include an international document showing very clear message to North Korean. But however, how much practical way can we carry it? That's the different issue, and it's more important what the G7 also plus the other countries can get together to deal with cope with the situation. I think that's more significant.
Right, practical measures matter. Yeah. And Professor, do we expect a strong unified message regarding rules-based international order with Ukraine and Taiwan in mind?
That's a very interesting question because from my international trade background, that's really, to me, actually is very interesting because that I don't think the U.S. government is in a position to talk about rule-based because they're the one really, stop working the WTO, everything. So after the Trump administration, the U.S. government changed their position actually from more really rule-based, really purely rule-based order. Now it's more like selectively rule-based because and then there are many policies, domestic policy in U.S. policy have changing really nationalistic. Just like so it's comparing, but if you look at a neutral perspective, they're doing like a Chinese government. They put it all the same regulation, requiring the foreign competitor, make them do something didn't have to do, and they changed a lot of regulations. So I guess that the problem is that also there's some. I read some news, foreign news about covering about Joe Biden getting the nuclear, the button at the Hiroshima. That's kind of, here's the job to do, but still the sign about, and a very interesting observation. I come across this newspaper, Japanese newspapers criticize Joe Biden and U.S. administration, never apology. Whatever they did in 1945. And I was like, oh, it's very interesting. It was just the same things we're talking to Japanese, and they're using the same argument to US. Also, I guess that maybe it's time maybe you have to tell Joe Biden, say, you should apply to Japan and to us. And there's a big picture. When I'm doing the research on this issue about Hiroshima issue, that perhaps the reason the Japanese government doing it, not, saying sorry. Basically, their argument, they have some consistency I found, but although I do not agree with them, but yeah, I guess there's got some point there.
You brought us really interesting point there, Professor. South Korea was invited to this particular meeting along with others. So it seems it's not just a meeting of just 7 countries. And President Yoon addressed an expanded session on food, climate, energy, and other global emergencies. What do you say about South Korea clarifying its position and ramping up its contributions on the global stage?
Yeah, that's a big question. Actually, there was an issue before the G7 meeting. And the question is that whether South Korea can be the 8th member of G7, extended G7. Yeah. But now we know it's not really happening this time. But as I mentioned, that this Hiroshima meeting is really full house. There's so many people. I was surprised that there were so many leaders there. I think there's 16 leaders, national leaders, including the President Zelensky. Oh yeah, including Zelensky joined today, so it's 16. So, wow. And plus there's United Nations, there's EU, right? It's a big house, right? Full house. But the problem is that what can we do, South Korean government, in the future, increase our improve our global standing? Is that can we just join it? I'm not really positive on joining G7 at the current system because it's not about the Japanese government. Because if we look at it here, I was very surprised that G7 actually have 8 members, including EU. So if we're considering EU as a one voting member, there's it's 6 out of 8 member is European. So if we want to get in there, we need approval from the European neighbors, like French and Italian and German, which is not easy because they have own their, joining FIFA. It's like FIFA situation, it's a European playground. So can we actually join there? It's not easy. And I don't really blame Japanese government because I don't think they have much influence on that arena because that there's US side and Canada there's a side with the US and Japan perhaps, and the rest is European side. So if we wanted to get in there, we need to get consensus. 100% agree to joining the member, which is not easy. Consensus is always, it's ideal, but it's very practical perspective, very difficult to get in, right? So we have to take a different view that, what can we do, without getting the GA status, maybe what is really for short-term, goal and long-term goal, I think we need to get more practical on making strategy on the global, setting.
Very briefly, what do you see on South Korea increasing its contributions on the global stage?
I think that's good. I mean, because I think we should do, contribute to more international community because we are the one we receive, international support during the Korean War, not only the Korean War during the 60s, 70s. So I guess there's time to, I shouldn't say pay back, but at least to do our job and,
right.
there's some contribute to something, international perspective. But, but however, you always think about what we want to do, how it's going to happen. So, and plus that we can, although we do not have much control on what to do, you can send a message, sending to the whoever we can help, and the international community, we can have our position. But my personal concern is that if you do too close to any country, so like the U.S. or any country, that we have a sovereignty issue. Some of the issues will have a conflict. There's no perfect match, right? So the problem was that I'm concerned that we need to get some of the issue taking our own stand, independent and with sovereignty issues, right?
All right, Professor An, many thanks for your insights.
My pleasure.